Hello everyone. We have a super fun adventure to go on today. I am going to the Open Garden Squares weekend in London. So it is an entire weekend where all of the secret gardens in London are actually open to the public. Not every single one of them. They have kind of a very curated list of I think 100 or so gardens between Saturday and Sunday that are open. Today is Sunday. I could not go yesterday because I just got my hair done. So today I'm going to make the most of this gorgeous sunny day, see tons of secret gardens, and I'm going to bring you along with me. Are you ready? Let's go. Currently exploring my first garden, which is in Maida, Vale, and it's called the Triangle Garden. And while it's the whole thing about Maida Vale that's really interesting is that behind kind of all the beautiful kind of historic buildings that you see in Maida Vale are all these kind of private, secret gardens that are only available to the people who live there. So if you don't have a garden flat or your building doesn't have universal access to that garden, you don't get to go there. So getting to peek in is actually quite special, and this one is really beautiful, so I'll show you around. So the first garden, the Triangle Garden, was super lovely. Makes me wish that I lived in one of those buildings on the triangle so I could have access to a garden like that every day. So now I'm going to see one more in Maida Vale before I venture further down into West London. So let's go check it out. And who is this over here? Do you own the little garden, Mr. Kitty? Just chilling, enjoying, aren't you? Yep. Hello there. So now I am in garden number 2. I am in the Crescent Gardens, which were actually voted London's best large private garden. It's quite an honor, and it's a really beautiful garden, and you can see how it's a really lovely one for the residents. There's flowers, there's a children's play area. I definitely also wish I lived on this square, for the record. But what I thought was interesting as well when I was doing some research on this garden is apparently during World War II, one of the enemy kind of fighter aircrafts mistakenly thought that Little Venice, which is kind of where you see lots of canals and houseboats, they mistakenly thought Little Venice was the River Thames, and they accidentally bombed a part of the buildings that run along this square. So they've actually been rebuilt since then, but pretty crazy. The Thames and Little Venice are very, very different in terms of river width. So I can definitely see why this garden won kind of the best large private garden, because it's 3 acres. It's a really nice mix of kind of open green space for kids to play, and you see lots of kids and families. Ooh, excuse me. You see a lot of kids and families out and about, you know, just kind of playing. The actual gravel path that I'm walking on is actually all right for kids to kind of ride their bikes on. So I've seen a few kids riding their bikes around here with their parents, very cutely trying not to crash into me. So it seems like a really nice, just livable garden, but there's also some really lovely little bits where they've done some landscaping with some flowers, and they have benches. So again, you know, if you were kind of flat hunting or lucky enough to buy something on one of these squares, it would just really add to your quality of life. So definitely opened my eyes a bit, and I've definitely enjoyed kind of taking cheeky peeks at everyone's gorgeous patios, and I definitely don't want to film that for privacy reasons, but definite future flat goals here, that's for sure. Next up, I am off to Bayswater. It's about a 30-minute walk from here, and we're gonna go explore another garden. Get ready for it. So I'm currently now in the Pembridge Square Gardens in Bayswater, and it's really lovely. It's actually quite crowded, so I'm in kind of one of the back nooks right now, so I can not so awkwardly speak to my camera. But they have a winter garden and I think a summer garden, but it's just like so cute. So I'm going to show you a bit of what I discovered. So, as if this garden couldn't get any cuter, there's actually like a little hedge maze in here. I'm gonna show it to you. Hold on a minute. How cool is that? We definitely have to go explore that in a minute. But will I get stuck in the maze? Only time will tell. How cool is this? I mean, serious garden goals. That's awesome. Am I still in London? I think I am. Can I find my way out now? That is the challenge. I could just see being a little kid in here and like chasing people around and having like the best time ever. All right, found my way out. That was kind of anticlimactic, but before we go, that's a bit random. So as much as I love the gardens in Maida, Vale, I feel like this is my kind of garden. A kind of secret hedge maze, what are those called? Hedge mazes? A rose garden? All these little secret nooks you can like hang out and read. Yeah, I really like this one so far. So happy. let's go on to the next. So the next garden that we're going to go see is none other than the garden that Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts snuck into in the famous movie Notting Hill. And yes, it is in Notting Hill, and it is called Rosmead Gardens. So let's... So now I am in the famous kind of Rosmead Park and Gardens that was made famous by the movie Notting Hill. It's actually very charming. It's a very large garden space, and all of the homes that are around this square are all like this beautiful colored Notting Hill homes. So imagine like owning a property like in one of these buildings behind me and walking out to this beautiful garden behind you. That is a serious goal. So let's see, give you a taste of what the buildings look like behind me. Really cool. Just a lovely little, mostly green space in here, a couple kind of like playthings for children, some benches, and there are some really lovely flowers kind of on the outer edges of the landscape. But what they've also done to make it really fun for visitors of the kind of open garden squares weekend is they actually have a nonprofit here making like Pim's alcoholic drinks, and they have like cakes and things for sale. So they know this garden will get a lot of foot traffic, and because of its Notting Hill movie fame, so they're also using the opportunity to raise some money for good. So love that initiative. We'll definitely be supporting that with some sort of like snack on the way out. But until then, I will show you a little bit more from the rest of this beautiful garden. So my verdict on the Rosmead garden is, well, the garden itself is actually not as spectacular as some of the other ones that I've seen. It's a really lovely kind of private garden if you're lucky enough to be a resident around here. And I would say actually coming over this way, open garden squares weekend or not, is worth it. Got interrupted there, is worth it just for the area alone. It is such a beautiful part of kind of Notting Hill, Holland Park area that you don't really get to see very often. So if you love like beautiful architecture or some of those pastel hued buildings, I would highly recommend it just for that purpose. As well as if you happen to do the open garden squares weekend, fabulous as well. But I wouldn't say the garden in itself was that spectacular, but I did enjoy kind of experiencing a famous piece of London movie history. So that was, I guess I can check that one off the list then, right? So on to the next. It's getting a bit late in the day, so I got unfortunately a bit of a later start. So it's about 3 p.m. Everything ends by like 5. Some of the clouds are slightly ominous above, but I thought what I would do is go into the City of London. I really want to see, there's a roof terrace garden on Cannon Street that's supposed to be really cool, and because it's 3 p.m. and everything ends at 5, it will take me about 45 minutes to get over there between the tube and walking. So I'm gonna... All right, so I am now in the Cannon Bridge Gardens in the River Building. It's right along the Thames in the city of London. You actually get off at Bank and walk almost down to the Thames because the building is literally on the banks of the Thames, and it is just spectacular. Not only do you have views of all of the iconic City of London buildings, but the gardens themselves are so beautiful for an office building, literally. So it's the people that use this are the people who work in the River Building on the Thames, and they've made this beautiful, relaxing green oasis that's on 2 different levels. It's apparently the largest garden in the City of London, and gosh, I wouldn't want to leave work if this was on the top of my building. Hey guys, so I am now back at home, back where we started at the beginning of the day, and oh my gosh, I can't tell you, it was such an incredible day. I really loved the Open Garden Squares weekend. I cannot believe it's taken me 4.5 years in London to actually go and do it. And I'm kind of sad that I was only able to do it for 1 day. So I made it to 5 different gardens today, 2 in Maida, Vale, 1 in Bayswater, 1 in Notting Hill, kind of Notting Hill, Holland Park border. And then I went to the Cannon Bridge Gardens. I will make sure I put it down below for you, but it was in the River Street building. So in terms of feedback, I think around, I think given that I started at like noon or so, 5 gardens was pretty good, given that a bunch were kind of walkable within 20-30 minutes of each other, and 1 was about a 30-40 minute train ride across town. So I think that was a pretty good pace. I didn't really stop a lot for like bathroom breaks or food. I only stopped once. So I think if you really wanted to make a proper day of it, you could see a few more, but you'd probably want to factor in like a lunch break and maybe a coffee break, because all of that standing and walking, can definitely wear on, especially depending on, how your back is and all those things. I even found my back was getting a bit stiff, and I was actually really grateful for like the 40-minute tube commute just to kind of just get to sit down for a bit. So I would say you need to factor in some breaks. So probably I would say like 5 to 8 seems reasonable per day, depending on how close they are. And I guess just your ability to kind of stand and walk for long periods of time. In terms of my favorite ones, well, I really enjoyed getting to just see a mix is what I would say, and I would recommend that. I would definitely do your research ahead of time. I actually really I Googled a lot of like what are the best gardens to see. I also just looked a bit at like proximity and hours that they were open, because some will only be open on Saturday, some will be open both days, some will only be Sunday. So I definitely would kind of strategize based on that and prioritize. And then what else would I say? I think it was good to see a mix as well. So I definitely saw like 4 different residential gardens, and after a while although they were all different, like the Pembroke Gardens was definitely my favorite of the 4 residential gardens that I saw. But if you only saw residential gardens all day, it might just feel a bit like a lot of the same. So I would definitely mix in kind of different areas around London, which will also impact how many you can see. But I think my favorite was the Pembridge Gardens, just because if I was going to be like, if I had my money was no object choice of a garden to live on in London, I mean, something like that kind of garden would be my dream. You know, a beautiful rose garden is there. There's definitely a grassy space for kids to play and for picnics. And then there's also lots of like little secret nooks where you could just go cozy up with a friend and, you know, have like a nice quiet chat or just read and just be a little bit more chill and serene. So I really liked that about that garden. And then I also really loved the Cannon Bridge Gardens, which was really incredible that an office building in the city would do such an incredible job with their roof terrace. It really felt like, you know, the spirit of a residential garden, but you got to see all of these incredible famous like City of London landmarks. So between Tower Bridge, the Shard, I mean, you know, St. Paul's Cathedral, just the views were so incredible, and the care that was put into the gardens as well was just absolutely incredible, with kind of the mix of flowers. And, you know, from what I heard from the really wonderful volunteers that were there, is it was very much a passion project of the gardener, and you really could feel that he poured so much love and thought into this beautiful kind of tranquil oasis on top of like a city office building. So I think those two are my favorites. I would definitely recommend seeing all of them. I think they were all wonderful for different reasons. You know, it's really great to see where, you know, a famous garden from the movie Notting Hill. That's kind of a cool London thing to do. I loved the ones in Maida, Vale. That is just cool to see how people really live. So I really enjoyed that. And especially if there's kind of a fantasy area in London that you'd love to live in, you could go kind of poke around in some of those private gardens and really get like a sneaky peek for what life is like there. So I love that element of it. And yeah, so with that said, I've just been rambling on for like 5.5 minutes there, so I'm gonna close out this video. I will leave the address, a little bit of history, and links to the Open Garden Squares weekend. Hope it inspires you just on something else kind of fun and really different that you could go and see in London, whether you're a local or a tourist. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment below. Would love to hear what garden you thought was the coolest and why, as well as always happy to answer any questions. And I do have a London guide on my blog, The Savvy Bostonian, so I will link that below, because if you, whether you're a local to London like I am, or you're just someone from overseas coming to visit, I continually update my very curated list of restaurants, bars, things to see and do. So like this video and the blog post that goes with this video will also end up linked in that London guide as well. So it's a great resource if you're coming to London and you want to make the most of it. So with that said, thank you so much for tuning in and watching what is arguably a very long video of me, you know, rambling and sightseeing. I really appreciate it and hope to see you soon. If you want to see more of this content, definitely subscribe as well. But if you don't, no worries. Thanks again for tuning in. All right, bye.